Thanks again for joining, folks. We'll get going here in a couple of minutes. And like I said, we'll show this 16-minute presentation from Will and Neil of Grow. And then I will have a little bit of an announcement for the community, and then we'll take your questions. Okay, I'll go ahead and get this recorded presentation started. This is from Will and Neil of Grow. It's about 16 minutes. And then once that's over, I've got a little bit of an announcement for the community, and then we'll be happy to take your questions. So here we go. Thanks, everyone.
Welcome to the Grow Blockchain. Today we have an exciting new update for you on things that are happening inside of the Grow community and on our chain. And as we dive into it, I want to remind us what we are doing at Grow. Our goal is to harness blockchain technology to nourish people, animals, and the planet with an overall mission to nourish the world. So anything that goes into nourishing the atmosphere, the soil, us as humans and stewards of the planet, but also all of the plants and animals on it. How do we nourish them, and how do we do it as a community? And so who are we? Who are you? Who are we as members of the Grow community? We are pioneers. And so whoever you are, wherever you are, we have the opportunity right now to be pioneers in this space and to look forward at a new frontier of what I like to call matching tradition with technology. How do we take the best tradition of the past and match it with the best technology of the future, which we view as blockchain and AI? And today we are going to talk about how we as pioneers, we as the farmers and cultivators of the Grow community can do that, and what we are building really on the technology front. And also, I want to remind us what our vision is. Our vision is to decentralize the global ag and farming industry, because right now there are some problems that have been created. If you look at innovation and the growth of technology, really over the last 100 to 50 years, so much has happened. We're moving at a speed that is significantly faster than we've been able to move in the past. However, with that growth, there have been some problems that have been created. So today you have myself, Will Taylor here. We also have Neil, who is going to come on and help us identify some of the problems that have been created from this really centralized global ag and farming industry.
Fantastic. So we've all seen this screen before, and this really represents some of the constraint points in our supply chain with food. So for those of you who don't know me, again, I'm Neil. I'm a farmer by trade. I've grown up in the farming and agriculture industry. I've worked in upstream and downstream in the supply chain, so taking products off farm into the consumer's hands via the supply chain. And so I'm fairly well antiquated with some of the things that are going wrong right now, and really where Grow comes in and offers an opportunity to create new rails and new pathways to benefit the landowners, farmers, and ranchers and producers globally, as well as building more trust for the consumers, while also creating some positive friction with all these companies that you see on this chart right now. we actually need to flip the conversation with these companies in the supply chain. This is one of those goals that Grow is set out to accomplish, because in flipping the conversation, we start to get the supply chain to start to decentralize. So the centralized bodies you see in the middle of the screen, they're going to need to start to look internally, start breaking up how they have their conglomerates set up, how they operate, how they work with the producers globally, and how they interact with the consumers. And so that's part of our mission. Right now, we're focused on onboarding and bringing on amazing farmers and ranchers and producers globally, so that you as consumers that are part of our ecosystem and those looking to join can actually access some of that amazing product and food right now and feed your family nutritious food. But as we continue to build, some of these other components are going to start to come into play. Let's talk about some of the problems. Shrinking markets. One of the biggest issues in the shrinking markets is we're actually degrading our soils. So what I mean by that is every time we continue to farm with chemistry, we start to lose the functionality of the soil. I'm a big fan of talking about soil health, but functional soil health. And so we're depleting it of water, of microorganisms, of fungi, of nematodes. We need all that microbiology in the soil to create functionality so that it can continue to produce the amazing, nutritious, healthy foods that we want. And also our livestock eat a lot of that forage and grasses that come off of that. So our protein, whether it's poultry or swine or cattle or goats, we need to make sure that they're eating as healthily as we're eating because it's a closed loop circuit. The other component to this, and I'm just going to throw out some information here for you, is that on the financial side, $60 billion of revenue is lost each year. And actually it was in 2024, this number comes from, due to degraded soils. What that means is that farmers are more dependent on subsidies and government grants to cover some of their input costs, because what they were doing 3 or 4 years ago isn't going to create the same yields, because we're very focused on yield output farming. And that dependency creates a lot of stress for farmers and producers globally. On the other side of that, a lot of farmers depend on LOC, so lines of credit, to capitalize their upfront inputs to put all the seed in the ground, to get the cattle, the infrastructure set up so that we can eat nutritious food on the back end. But those LOCs are becoming harder and harder to continue to get because of the constraints within our financial markets. And these problems are compounded. So one begets the other, or more politely said, they both go hand in hand. As we degrade soils, we create issues in the market space that creates financial constraints, and that is just heavy weight on our producers. But there is a solution. The future is now, and that is all of you. What we're doing at Grow is creating the railways, creating the systems, creating the opportunities so that we can uncouple from the single bank relationships that we're used to, from the constraints of our current financial systems, from the constraints of the centralized market space, and so that we can connect consumers more closely with those that are growing and raising our food. So we can get back to the essence of how food should be tasted, felt, touched, smelt. And really what we're going to start to see happening is we're going to start to build community back in these rural sectors that are starting to be depleted faster and faster. And that future is really, really exciting. And there's some really fun things that we're going to be talking about in a few moments here.
Thanks, Neil. And I want to jump in and remind us of, again, who we are. We're going to see this slide a couple of times because Neil just went over those problems that exist today that we have created. But the beauty is we're stepping into a future where we have a solution. And that solution starts with each one of us. So if we go back to that first problem, it's created by a centralized system. Well, how do you create a decentralized system? First and foremost, you have to create a community of people that own it, manage it, and run it, and build upon it. And so that is what we are doing. And if you are listening to this presentation right now, then you are a part of the future, and you're a part of bringing it into right now. And so farming yesterday looked like this. You have all of those things Neil talked about, and you have this example of cows out eating the grass, being a part of the system. But I want to show you what the farming of today looks like. We have all of those amazing systems that continue to feed us globally. However, we have technology now that can tie in to what's happening in those real world assets. So if you have a crop, if you have a seed that is growing into a tree that is then going to give us apples or cherries, or you have a cow that's eating food, we actually have the ability to tie into that and to show the world what is happening. And so this representation here, we take the farming of yesterday, we take those same cattle, and now we can tie them to a digital asset. And that is what we have today. And so on the Grow blockchain, we have built what is called live.stock. And what livestock is this representation where every single piece of cattle that is being raised and nurtured on a ranch or a farm can now be tied into the digital world of blockchain so that we can not only know what's happening, but we can have immutability and transparency in what's happening to that. And so what we have launched on the Grow blockchain is this livestock program where you can own real cattle, the digitized version of that cattle, and earn real returns. So what does this do? Well, this has the vast majority of us who are not feeding cows every day, who are not waking up to go make sure that they're fed and handled well, and maybe don't even have that experience. And so I would bet that most of us listening to this, even if we had a cow popped into our backyard, we wouldn't have the means, resources, or the know-how to actually do that. But we want to. And the way we know it is I've given presentations about Grow to tens of thousands of people, and I have everyone raise their hand and they say, who would like to know where their food comes from or what went into growing it? And almost everyone raises their hand. Well, now we have that ability. And so by using NFTs on the digital world, we can actually allow you to be a part of that process and become not just a pioneer, but also a cultivator. And if you're in the Grow blockchain, you have a cultivator NFT in your wallet right now. And this is what that means. It means that you're a part of matching what's happening in the real world on the ground, feeding or raising crops, but also what's happening in the digital world so that we can nourish the world by bridging tradition with technology and take everything that's happening on the earth and put it in an open sourced immutable ledger that is the Grow blockchain. And so the farming of tomorrow looks like everything that's happening, whether that's raising chickens or goats or pigs or cattle or horses, we can tie that to a digital asset. And very simply put, if you look at these pictures on the right, you have a chicken, you have a goat. Well, above that, living in the digital world on the Grow blockchain is the digital representation of that. And so to really make this simple, the way I want you to think about this is if there's a real world action being taken with a real world product, a real world animal or a real world cow, that same thing has to exist on the blockchain in the digital world. And so we call that an NFT, a non-fungible token. And so these pictures of the digital version of the animal is tied and matched with what's happening in the real world. And so tomorrow, when we move into the world of we know what's happening with our food, in fact, I'm willing to make a bet and a hope that I have for the world that maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years down the road, our kids and the next generation won't put something into their body unless they know what went into growing or raising it or where it came from. And if you look right now, just think about your kitchen or the last meal that you ate. How do you know what happened to that food? How do you know what the ingredients in it actually are? I just watched a documentary yesterday online about a series of products that were third-party tested and turned out that over 50% of the ingredients that were being said were in that food were not actually in the food or were completely incorrect. Well, what we have today, and this goes back to being pioneers and moving into the future, into a frontier that isn't quite here yet, but where we're going, is we will get there. And the mechanism for building the farming of tomorrow is the Grow blockchain so that we can have animals like this, our crops like this, where we can see, okay, I know that that piece of corn or that potato or that tomato, orange or apple that I had, this is what went into it. And we can reward the farmers and producers that are putting in the blood, sweat, and tears. Then tie that into how are they doing? Not only do we know what went into it and what the ingredients are, but we know how it was raised. And so you heard Neil mention about the soil degradation and what's happening in the atmosphere. Well, we can see that. We can actually start to see that with partners like satellite imagery and go in. We can know that this producer over here is doing X, Y, and Z. This producer's over here is doing 1, 2, 3. Which would we like to support? And so that we can put our money where our mouth is and say, this is where I want to support, and I know what's actually happening. We can do the same thing with land. And so if we tokenize the land and we have a digital representation of how much farmland do we have? How much water do we have? What are the inputs that we can put into actually farming or producing on this land? What if all of that was tokenized on the Grow blockchain so that we could see it and we could know and we could better plan for the future, solve things like world hunger? And all of this is happening on the Grow blockchain. So via this representation, you have a piece of software that's run on a piece of hardware. So you can think of a mining or a computer, and you're running your node. And what does that node do? So that node right now distributes the Grow token on a daily basis. But what it is also going to start doing is distributing the digital representation of everything that we just went over. And so now, by running a Grow node, not only can you be distributed the Grow token, but you will be distributed these NFTs that are the digital containers and representations of the cow, of the horse, of the pig, of the goat, of the apple, anything that we can produce that goes into the mission of nourishing the world, we can see, we can go on and start attaching those into what is happening. And I want to go back to this slide here, which is livestock. And so right now, as of this presentation, we can connect that digital container into what we would call the soul. So you have that real world cow, it has data attached to it, it can tie in, and you can actually purchase and help support the farmer in raising that cow by giving him funds to buy the cattle, as well as funds via smart contracts to feed that cow. And in the description of this video, wherever you're watching, you can see a link to that site where you can request a demo to livestock and learn how you can support cattle, and then in the future, all of these other products that are coming. And so that is how we are going to move from a centralized system into a true blockchain. And to dive into this a little bit more, I want you to think about the system that exists. So if you're at home and you're watching this on your computer, or you're watching this maybe on your phone or listening while you drive in your car, you probably don't have the ability today to very easily go in and support a farm. Well, now you do. And so as more and more farmers and producers come onto the Grow blockchain, what we need is a blockchain of community of people, where every single one of these colored dots now not only represent us as active community members, but also now the products, what is being produced, the animals that are being raised, the crops that are being grown, so that we can move through the who are you, and all of us being pioneers and being active in being cultivators and pioneers of the Grow blockchain, so that we actually nourish people, animals, and the planet. And so if you're watching this presentation or listening, go to the links that are below, request a demo for livestock, and see how this is working in real time so that we are truly nourishing the world and building a decentralized ecosystem on Grow.
All right. Oh, there's my camera. It was blurring me instead of my background. Is my sound okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everyone for joining today. As I said before, I'm Cindy with Grow. I get to do these AMAs with you all a couple times a week. And before we take any questions, or before I take any questions, a couple of announcements. One is that we would love for you all to participate in our end of year Grow 2025 survey of what you're grateful for, and then your vision for 2026. I've put a link to that survey in the chat. And at the end of it, if you are willing and want to, there is a link to upload a short video to Dropbox with that same information about Grow. Maybe 15, 20 seconds. We can use that to share across our social channels. We can splice it together and create some cool stuff. but that is something that we would love to get y'all's participation in. Anything that has been accomplished this year, and since the project has started, is because of what you are doing in the community. It's not because Cindy showed up to work today to run an AMA. It's not because Will is awesome at talking about grow. It's because the community chooses to keep talking about this, to believe in it, and to put their energy into growing grow. So we would love to get your feedback. So please take a minute to do that. Share the link with others. I will make sure it has been posted in the social impact platform. It has been posted in school. It should be on all of our social channels, but would love to get your participation there. And then the next thing is we are getting ready to have our first community vote. So over the next couple of weeks, you will receive information about proposed changes, proposed updates to grow, to how things are working. And we want everybody to be able to vote. So please watch your emails, watch Discord, watch the socials for specific information on that when it drops. I don't have a specific day for you, but we are getting ready to have a vote. I know it's the end of the year. We may get it announced and ready to go before Christmas. I'm not certain, but we're going to have the first community vote, which, as you all know, if you've been in any of the other communities, we're really working hard to put this more in the hands of the communities, to have the councils be active, to be able to have community continue to be what drives the Grow project and can make it be everything we envision. So again, thanks for all that each of you are doing. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for talking about Grow. Thanks for being supportive through our successes and our failures, the things that we learned from that didn't maybe go the way we wanted. Thank you to each of you. And from there, those are my announcements. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have anything they'd like to say today on our AMA? You should have permission to unmute yourself. You can raise your hand if you'd like. I think I have that turned. Yeah, you can raise your hand. But any questions or comments, would love to hear. Right, it's a quiet group. Oh, Layla, there you go.
I think we're good. Nobody
yeah.
has nothing to say.
Yeah, it sounds pretty quiet. That is fine with me. But again, thank you all for taking the time to be here. Please watch your emails and watch our channels for information about the vote. And if you have a minute and you feel inclined, please take some time to do that survey. We would love feedback. We would love to hear directly from you. And thanks again for all you're doing. I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season. And we won't be doing this on Christmas Day. We won't be doing this on New Year's Day. Probably on Tuesdays of those weeks, although I will have a helper with me since there's no school. But we'll get those going. Yeah,
And as
thank
far
you.
as the vote, that's for node owners, right?
Vote is restricted to those who are node owners, yes. So
Right.
there are about 27,000 active node owners within the Grow community, I believe. And so, yes, the vote is for those who have a node. Even if you have a Sprout NFT that's got a light node attached to it, so it's weighted. It's much less, but you still have some say. So we'd love for everybody to participate in that once we announce it and it's ready.
Okay, thanks, Cindy.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.